Hello everybody. I am continuing with the LCHF series recipes. Today I'm going to be doing broccoli soup. This is from Dr. Uma Swaminathan's cookbook, LCHF recipes. I'll get started and then we can look at the recipe in detail. Sorry about there are some stains in there on the card, but I will read it out for you as soon as I finish layering. So I have my 2-liter magic pot, and what I'm going to do is add in half cup of water first, and then I'm going to add about 20 grams that I have measured out, 20 grams of butter, and this adds the fat. So 20 grams of butter first, and then I have cut about, the recipe calls for 10 shallots, which is the small onions, but here again I have to add a disclaimer. I'm cooking in Dallas, Texas in the US, and we do get shallots, but they are much bigger than the real baby onions. So I have used shallots that are almost medium sized. I'll show you the size I've used. They're more like this. These are the closest, I'd say cousins to the Indian onion that we get. So I use this a lot for my Indian cooking. But for this particular recipe, I have used about 3 of those, not 10. 10 you can use if you're using really small, like the chinna vengayam or the real baby onions. But I have used about 3 shallots. This is in proportion to the broccoli that I'm using. So do follow the recipe. It's 10 cut shallots, and so that's what I'm going to put at the bottom. And then I have 4 garlic pods. Once again, 4 small garlic pods. I've used big ones that you get typically in the US. So I've used about 2 big ones or 3 medium-sized ones in this case. So I'm putting that in. And then 2 teaspoons of fresh cut ginger. All these I've measured and cut and kept. And then broccoli florets. The recipe calls for 10 broccoli florets. What I have done is I used regular broccoli, and the florets were pretty big, so I actually chop them into smaller pieces. So you'll see that this looks like it's a little more than 10, but if you're using just store-bought florets, directly chopped florets, use 10 big ones. I have chopped them into slightly smaller pieces. I'm going to do that here too, just so it cooks well, and anyway we're going to blend it later, so it'll just give you a better consistency. So that's what I've done. And then 2 full tomatoes. I've used a pretty big beefsteak tomato here, so what I did was kind of chopped it into half. Keep in mind, a lot of the vegetables that we get here in the US are pretty big. So we have really huge sized garlic, huge sized onion, huge tomatoes. So I'm going by obviously what you get in size in terms of the Indian vegetables. So I have taken a really big beefsteak tomato, which is the real big. These 2 are pretty much one, and I've chopped it into half. But if you're using medium sized, the Indian tomatoes, use 2 of them. And then 2 teaspoons of pepper powder that I'm going to put here, and then 1 teaspoon of salt. And then we're going to cover this and cook it on high for about 3 whistles. Give me a second. I'm trying to find my... Okay. So I wasn't prepared with that. I was prepared with everything else. So cooking it on high now for 3 whistles, and I'm using my induction cooker standardized at 1200 watts, so that's what I'm cooking it at. We're going to look at the recipe again. So what I did here was in my magic pot, I layered half cup of water, 20 grams of butter. Now, I know that if there are vegans watching, you can substitute that. You can try using coconut oil. You do have to use some kind of fat, good fat. So, we've used butter in this recipe because I'm following the original recipe, but you may substitute that with, if you're vegan, into something that's non-dairy. 10 shallots cut, and I showed you the size of the shallots that I used, but obviously if you're using the baby onions, then go ahead and use 10 of them. 4 garlic pods, 2 teaspoons of fresh cut ginger, 10 broccoli florets, 2 full tomatoes, 2 teaspoon pepper powder, 1 teaspoon salt. So I'm going to cook this on high for 3 whistles and release pressure and blend with my hand blender. You can also use a regular blender because the soup is very creamy and gives you that thick consistency. But if you like to taste some of the vegetables in your mouth when you're eating or drinking your soup, then a hand blender is good enough. It gives you some chunks. But if you really like it smooth, you can go ahead and use a high-speed blender or your regular blender as well. I'm going to use the hand blender just for this purpose. I like the soup to be chunky. You can also, again, if you're not vegan, you can also add cheese to this afterwards. That's something that's if you like that flavor for broccoli cheesy soup, you can also add that later. But I'm not going to do that for this recipe, and again, the original recipe does not really call for it. I'm just giving you the modifications. So that essentially is the recipe itself. We're going to wait for the whistles, but just a very quick outline of all these LCHF recipes. These are low carb, high fat. For the most part, what Dr. Swaminathan has done is really stuck to a diet that she actually provides on a daily basis, or a menu plan that she provides on a daily basis in her book. Follows the principles of intermittent fasting. So there is daily lunch and dinner recipes, and that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to follow along and document these as we go. I will, once I do the videos for the lunch or the dinner, I will be putting up a post that links to all the posts that consolidate the lunches and consolidate the dinners, for example. So do check it out and do try it out. I mean, these are obviously great now that we are in fall in the US and in other parts of the world when it's winter time. It is a good, there are some great soup recipes. We had done a tomato soup some time back, and this is broccoli. So that's our first whistle. This is just perfect for dinners, because you want to keep your dinner relatively lighter than lunch. So it's, basically a soup, and then I think the rest of the menu plan is a more kali using almond flour, and then a gotsu to go with that. So it's a fairly lighter menu compared to the lunch menus. That's the second whistle. And the lunch menus also, what you will find in the book is no rice, shredded vegetables being used instead of rice, like shredded cauliflower, shredded broccoli, shredded bottled gourd, etc. So do check it out, and I will be documenting most of them. So that's the third one. I'm gonna shut it off, release the pressure. going to take my hand blender, which I've kept ready. A bit of splashing happening here, so you can see that it's a very creamy consistency thanks to the onions and the tomatoes and the broccoli. You don't really need to add any cream. It's pretty good as is, and you can blend it more. As I said, you can add a little more water if you want, and if you like the consistency to be a little more runny, but I'm going to kind of leave you here with this because you can obviously add modifications as I suggested, but this essentially is, and I'll show you the consistency very quick. That's the consistency. So this essentially is the broccoli soup, and I like it a little chunky like this, but you can put it in a high-speed blender and just blend it till it's completely liquefied. So that's your broccoli soup. Add your garnishes and let me know what you think, and do check the book out. Thank you so much.